Story that is making headlines globally, the much discussed and long awaited US-India trade deal, which is finally announced. Now, in a major breakthrough, New Delhi and Washington have announced a historic agreement aimed at ending months of tariff tensions. Under the deal, the steep tariff imposed on Indian exports will now be sharply reduced to 18%, marking a significant de-escalation in the tariff war between the two countries. Now, the agreement follows several rounds of intense negotiations and comes just days after India concluded its landmark trade pact with the European Union. Here is a report. All right, so this is the biggest news at this morning when we have already seen that Trump has conceded to the negotiations that has been going on, very tense negotiations from past couple of months that have been going on between both the commerce ministries of United States and India. Piyush Goyal has also been actively involved in the trade deal negotiations. So the tariffs are slashed from 50% to 18%. All right, so I have my colleague Pranav with me in the studio. Pranav, it's a big day for India, a big diplomatic win that we have secured as far as the trade deal is concerned. What more can you tell us?
Well, Hina, at this particular time, what we are primarily looking at is all the claims that have actually come from the US side. It's Donald Trump saying that India has stopped buying Russian oil. India will be buying Venezuelan oil. India is agreeing to make 500 USD trade, with US. Prime Minister Modi has said that buy American. These are all claims that Donald Trump has made as of now. If you look at the Indian statement, it is very, very measured. While congratulating that talks have moved forward, there is no overcommitment that is seen if you read the fine print. Well, the markets are, however, reacting positively. We need to actually see whether there is substance in the claims that Donald Trump has made, or whether this is just another of several claims that he has made over the past few months, keeping the world in jitters and on the hook. So we need to wait and watch and see how the fine print actually unveils over the next about few days and few months.
Right. Pranav, last night there was a lot of confusion, and it still continues whether it will be 50% to 18% or it is just reciprocal tariffs that Trump has reduced. And what about the tariffs which India was warned of by Trump because of India's Russian imports?
There was an initial confusion, but what the foreign publications also, that we were just going through a lot of foreign publications. We were also going through some White House reports. We were also talking to a few experts. And what we understand prima facie is that, one, the 25% penalty that was slapped on India for buying Russian oil, that seems to have been completely abolished, according to Donald Trump's claim. And the remaining 25% has been slashed to 18%. So what we are looking at now is an effective tariff reduction from 50% to 18%.
But it still remains very precarious because we have seen Trump imposing tariffs on European Union even after finalizing a deal. So here we have a situation where we'll have to wait for the fine print to come.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. We have Mr. David Cay Johnston joining us from the US, American journalist. Mr. Johnston, how is the American media, how is the global media looking at this trade? What are the headlines that you're seeing on your side of the globe?
Well, just as you spoke, a great deal of skepticism about what's actually going on here. Donald is, of course, very mercurial, but perhaps most importantly, let's keep in mind that under the American Constitution, Trump has no authority to impose tariffs. Only the Congress can impose tariffs, something I've taught my law students for many, many years. And all the tariffs that have been paid have all been paid subject to a demand for a refund, and the U.S. Supreme Court will rule on this shortly. But tariffs are exclusively the power of the Congress, with some very minor exceptions that don't apply here. Secondly, let's not lose sight of the fact that before Donald Trump's second term, the average tariff that the U.S. put on Indian goods was 2.5%, and some items were tariffed at a fraction of 1%. So, while this is an improvement from what Trump declared without authority to do so, it's not at all clear that this is actually what's happening here, and there's not a great deal of specifics here or a mechanism to enforce it.
Okay. We just had, I mean, we were talking to Professor Sachs yesterday, and he was, we asked him one question, and that was that all of this ordeal that continued for about 6 months, where there was a lot of arm twisting, there were a lot of global jitters that he sent across, and all of that just to arrive once again at 18%, which is what India was, was bringing on the table to begin with. So why did this hullabaloo? What do you think Donald Trump gained over the past about 4 or 5 months that there was a lot of arm twisting that happened?
Well, your audience should know that I've covered Donald longer than any other journalist. I've written 3 best-selling books about him, and I was the first person to write about him becoming president, and that was in 1988. Donald doesn't know anything about trade. He has a mercantilist view that is a 16th century view of trade. He thinks that tariffs are paid by the country whose goods are tariffed, not by American consumers. And he's seen Modi negotiate an actual, no one questions it deal with the UK that should result in significantly more, perhaps as proposed, a doubling of trade between India and the United Kingdom before the end of this decade. But Donald doesn't know anything about what he's talking about. And I've documented that in my books and thousands of articles. He's a con artist, and he operates from whatever is at the moment in his mind.
All right, Mr. Johnson, we also do know that there is a legal challenge which is already ongoing in the United States, where Supreme Court can potentially give a verdict as to what needs to be done about Trump's unpredictable tariffs. What do you have to comment on that?
Well, the Supreme Court during the hearing was incredibly dubious and critical. They asked very tough questions. Some of the members of the court who have been voting for Trump's policies in other areas said they couldn't understand how he thought he had the power, because Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution says the Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, and imposts. Well, a tariff is a tax. It's a tax on American consumers. And it's been an important element in how the American economy has been in decline since Trump took office. Except for the rising stock market, basically every economic indicator in America has been heading south.
Okay. Do you also think that the tyranny so far that's unveiled over the past about 6 months, do you think the world is kind of united because of Trump? Did he help, as a blessing in disguise probably for the rest of the world to come together and just, abolish the duopoly that probably existed in the pre-tariff world?
Yeah, I think that Donald clearly is being rejected all around the world. European leaders are speaking up. Prime Minister Carney of Canada, his country is the U.S.'s largest trading partner. Donald had said, oh, they're a minor trading partner. Who cares? They're our biggest trading partner. He said Donald is rupturing the order established at the end of World War II. And so the U.S.'s position is being seriously diminished. The position of President Xi in China and its extraterritorial ambitions has been greatly aided by Donald Trump's behavior. And India has great opportunities here now in this new world order. I mean, India and China both are moving in the direction of restoring the positions they were in 500 years ago, the 2 wealthiest countries in the world. And Trump's antics here are simply going to be relatively short-term problems, presuming, and that's an important presumption, that the United States gets past Trump's dictatorial behavior and restores the American democracy. I think we will, but it's possible that we will not, that we will end up a dictatorship in full, as opposed to now where Trump is consolidating his position but doesn't have his dictatorship, which I warned people about clear back in 2011, does not have it fully in place.
Mr. Johnston, do you also think, because here in India, we look at this deal as coming right days after what we have signed with European Union, which is mother of all deals, do you think that Trump has understood that India has a very strong policy of dehyphenation and diversification, and India does not really depend on one country?
Well, Trump himself doesn't really understand these things, okay? I mean, I've spent hundreds of hours with Donald, and his lack of knowledge, if you were able to sit with him as I have for long periods of time, would astound people. It's all bluster. And he's the greatest con artist in the history of the world. He's got people convinced he's a genius, and he's not. But Trump's advisors are very aware that all these other trade deals are being made, that the European Union is making deals with China, that President Modi's deal with Starmer in the UK, all of those pull away from the dominance of the U.S., from the U.S. position as having the world's reserve currency, and they're all negative for the U.S. And his supporters know that if the economy continues to sink, that the Republicans who control, for the moment, the two chambers of the U.S. Congress are going to lose that control after the November elections.
Okay. So in the end, was it just about Nobel Peace Prize? Was it the frustration that India did not support? Was it the frustration that he did not get it? Was this all just a reaction to not being given the Nobel Peace Prize?
Oh, some of this is the offense that Donald feels because he wasn't given the Nobel Peace Prize. Remember, he claims he settled, depending on what day of the week it is, 7, 8, 9, or 10 wars, some of which have never occurred. There's a lot of discussion going on in the U.S. today, even by some former Trump supporters, about what he appears to be suffering from, something called prefrontal dementia, which if you put up tape of him walking, you'll see he often throws his right leg across his left, and that's one of the signs of this kind of dementia. But the important thing to keep in mind here is that with Donald, it's all bluster. It's not substance. And he's right now in a mode of being very feral because he's in deep trouble. He's in trouble over the tactics of the immigration people in the United States, like handcuffing little children and grabbing them off the streets. He's in trouble over the Epstein files, which contain a lot of damning information that point in the direction that he was, in fact, a serial child rapist. No proof of that. He denies it entirely, but a lot of things pointing in that direction. And he needs to distract the American public with announcements. And in this case, there isn't even a deal point memo that's been put out by the White House.
Mr. Johnston, do you also think that this is something Trump has done to cater to the MAGA voters because of course, the fiasco which is going on in Minneapolis and all of the other negative things?
Well, you know, Donald refers to his base, the Make America Great Again voters, as the poorly educated. And they are, by and large, and they are not people who follow world affairs. They don't have a background in economics. They don't understand trade economics. They don't understand labor economics, all things that I've studied. And it's why I'm a professor now in my old age teaching these things. They don't know this stuff. What they want from Trump is no more foreign wars like the 20-year war in Afghanistan, and they're unhappy that he has put ships off the coast of Iran and made a variety of bellicose statements, and they're very troubled about their economics because prices have been rising, wages have not. I was just teaching one of my classes today that the 90% of Americans today are worse off than they were 52 years ago. And it's very clear in the data that they're worse off, but the people around Trump, the top 1% of the 1%, their incomes have grown unbelievably high. Average income in that group in 2022 was $67 million. I expect this year, when we get the data in about 2 years, it will be in the same neighborhood of $60 to $70 million per family.
Mr. Johnston, final question from my side. We have seen that India's posture vis-a-vis US has continued to be the same, but United States is the one who has created this entire fiasco. Do you think that this trade deal will reset India-US ties?
Well, it depends on Trump's mercurial behavior. Donald is often influenced by the last person he talked to and whatever idea appeals to the mood he's in at the moment. Contrast that with India, like a number of other countries, have skilled professionals, technocrats, economists, people who know what they're doing, negotiating and trying to work out the best deal they can with someone who is just utterly unqualified for the position that the American public has put this man in. If India sticks to its course and doesn't antagonize Trump, that's a key element, not antagonizing him, then over time these things will work out and India will, I believe, be able to continue marching in the direction of being a much wealthier country. It's got to address some of its own problems, like its sclerotic legal system. But in terms of trade, India should see more investment and the ability to export more goods, particularly to the extent that it is a lower price producer of the same goods than China.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Johnston, for getting us your perspective on this very important matter. Thank you so much once again.
Take care.